welcome. I'm so glad everybody's here today. We've been doing this a few times, so everybody knows how our process works today. I like to open it up to, we have an hour together today for the Pure Soul members Zoom. So I would like to just open it up to you guys, and we can start with whatever you guys like. And if nobody starts, we do have some topics to talk about tonight. So, but if you have something, we'd love to start there.
I have something.
Hello. All right. Perfect. Hi.
Hi. So tonight's a full moon, and I was wondering if you had any advice on like making moon water and with crystals and stuff like that, or I'm not even sure if you do that or not. So I was just wondering your intake on all that.
Okay. So I am not the most highly qualified person to discuss that, but I will ask my spirit if she has any suggestions on the moon. So hold on one second while I do that, because I really don't have any idea, but we'll see what spirit says about it. So hold on. So I get a few different visions from my spirit. The first vision I get is when I was a little kid. One of the things that I used to recognize is if my grandma used to tell me, do you see the man in the moon or do you see the mom in the moon, is what she used to say. So basically, she was trying to explain to me that when I looked at the moon, I would either perceive a masculine energy or I would perceive a feminine energy. So every time I look at the moon, I do recognize, is it a man in the moon or is it a feminine energy? When you perceive either the male or the female energy of the moon, it identifies the one that you are deficient from, right? So if you need some feminine energy or you need to focus on the divine feminine in you, then you would recognize that the moon is leaning more toward a feminine perspective. If you're lacking that dominant or more male type of energy, then you would be more drawn to the moon thinking that it is a male energy. So I always suggest, or well, now I will always suggest, but it is something that I've always done, that I do recognize that and how the moon hits me or how I perceive it. So you can always focus on that, especially when there's a full moon, because that's when you're going to see either the feminine face or the masculine face. You may even notice that it's smiling or it's not smiling. And so really, if you just take a moment and you look at it and you kind of connect with it, it'll tell you the parts of yourself that you're deficient of. The reason that the moon can share that type of information with you is because if you think about your spirit and your human self, you're both human and your spirit. So if you think of the moon in context of the spirit self, and you think of the sun in context of the human self, and at two different, during the day, the sun self or the human self is more dominant and more in control because you're making decisions and you're trying to think about your day, and you have to be more humanly dominant during your day, especially when you're working and you have errands to run. At nighttime, when we get home and we start to settle down and when we start to relax and we start to get into that sleep pattern, or where our humanity is relaxing because we're watching TV or something, that's when our human self or our sun self, that's when it kind of releases the dominant control over us. And that's when the spirit self is more predominant. So you'll hear people talk a lot about connecting with their family members at nighttime, or they got a vision at nighttime, or they saw this something standing over there at nighttime. People get a lot of spooky feelings at night. And the reason they do that is because the moon self or that spiritual side of them is gaining some dominance. And that's why when you focus on the moon, you'll be able to recognize more what the soul is trying to let you know. And that's usually in order to fill you up. So I know that people do a lot of rituals to the moon. I know that it's important that if you are into crystals and stones, that you put those out in the moon to charge by the light of the moon. And that gives it energy and positive energy. But if we go based on the context that I'm talking about, then it's the spiritual energy that you're looking for when you focus on the moon. But about making moon water and all of those things, when my mom laughs when you ask the question, and she blows you kisses too. So apparently my mom likes you a lot. But one of the things she shows me is sun tea. When I was a little girl, my mom used to make sun iced tea in the big thing and put it in the sun. She said, do that, but do it at nighttime with the moon. So I don't have the answer to that, but my mom said it's something like that. And that will charge you during the day. I don't know if that's what you're looking for, but that's literally what my mom showed me, to do it like that and to put it in the moon, to put it at nighttime, and then it charges the water. And if you drink it, you actually could have or experience some calming effects during the day. Or like if you have anxiety, now my grandma is saying this part, but if you have anxiety, that it might calm some of your anxiety, because what you're doing is you're pulling spiritual energy from the moon and you're including it in your day. So it's kind of like you're welcoming your own spirit self into the dominant part of your human self, so that your day is more calm or more peaceful as you're going through, because you're like including your spirit self in it. That's from my grandma. So everybody should test it, because she's usually right on point. Well, she's always on point. So test it and see what happens. If it's a full moon and we're coming into that cycle, let's see if we learn anything by that. And look at that little baby. Hello. Do you see the baby? Yeah. Oh, what a cutie. Okay. Does that kind of answer your questions, or do you have any other things
No,
you want me to ask?
no, I think that's it. I mean, we leave the water out all night, right? Till the moon goes down. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
So I have
All
another
right.
And then
question.
Mhm.
Sorry. So it started out orange, if you saw it, and then it's been getting brighter and brighter. So does the orange piece mean anything? Because usually you don't see it
Anytime-
orange first.
Yeah, anytime you recognize a hue, color, or a specific color, you may look at it and see orange. I may look at it and see pink. Somebody else may look at it and think that it's a deeper red, right? So we are going to perceive the moon according to the way our spirit wants us to see it, because that's the energy that we're connecting with. So if you see orange and that's what it gravitates towards you, you want to look at your chakra system, because oftentimes when spirit communicates with you or speaks with you, spirit will use your structure of energy to communicate. And a lot of that is through vibration, frequency, sound, and color. So if you see orange, that would guide us toward the sacral chakra, which is our chakra that connects to the relationship we share with ourselves and others. So then you would want to take some time between yourself and your spirit self and ask yourself, how's your relationship going with yourself? Are you living up to the promises you told yourself last week when you told yourself, I'm going to do that this week? Did you do it? Like, these are the things that the sacral energy challenges us with. So if you see that in the moon, then that would indicate that that would be a reflection toward the self, to make sure that you're just kind of living up to what you decided for yourself that you would do. If you do that, that does unite you to the dominant part of yourself, the sun self, as we'll call it. I'm not using those terms in an astrological, like astrology way. I don't know what the sun self is. I know there's all kinds of like words like that. And my daughter-in-law can probably talk to that, because she's really good at astrology. Like if you want your astrology stuff, like she can do it for you. She's very good at it. She sat here and did ours like for like 4 hours last week, and it was fun. So if you have questions about that, so I know, Amanda, if you're listening, I am not using the right terminology, but again, I'm not talking about astrology. I'm just talking about it in the way that we're comparing the human self to the sun and the spirit self to the moon. And that's why I'm calling them sun self, moon self, but it's not in reference to any astrological like perceptions or ideas or anything. Lost my train of thought. Don't know what we were talking about. So what were we talking about? Oh yeah, the colors. So if I look out and I see a specific color like a pink or a red, or I may not even be focusing on so much the color that I'm seeing around it. What might call me is the white behind the color, right? So really, at different times when you do focus on the moon, you will notice different aspects of it speaking to you because it's energy to energy. Are you trying to tell me I'm going too far? Oh, Marissa was looking at me. Where are you? Are you on the screen, Marissa? Yeah. I don't see you. Oh, there you are. So I was leaning over because she was looking at me and I was like, am I being too long-winded and I should switch topics? But any other questions on the moon or on the colors of the moon? Okay. So what is our next topic of conversation?
You want to do mine? You want to do
Sure.
my
What is yours?
experiences?
Because now you have to refresh me.
Okay. So I went to Holy Hill this weekend, which is the national shrine up in Hartford, Wisconsin. So I went there to light a couple candles for some friends. One of them has cancer and one of them has COVID really, really bad. So I went and lit the candles and I went to the gift shop afterwards. And while I was standing in line at the gift shop, there was a lady in front of me, very, very, very nice lady. And her husband was there and he came up and asked her, he goes, did you find your earrings? And she goes, no, I didn't find the earrings that I'm looking for. And he said, I thought you would be able to find your earrings here of all places. And I asked her, I said, what earrings are you looking for? And she goes, well, I'm looking for mustard seed earrings. And I thought, okay, this is crazy. So she had on a pair of mustard seed earrings that were a heart. And we started talking about the mustard seed and how I have a mustard seed from my great aunt that I was named after. And I keep it on a necklace that I have. And she goes on to tell me, she goes, well, I'm looking for a mustard seed because she had a pair of earrings from her grandmother and she lost one. And I'm like, okay, I told her, I said, I'm supposed to be having this conversation with you for some reason. And she went on and on and on, told me about the mustard seed. And then she started describing it. And it was a mustard seed that was in a globe, then it hung from an earring that just dangled. Well, that morning on Sunday, when I woke up, I changed purses. And in my purse, I carried a little plastic case. And in that plastic case was one earring that I picked up at an antique store a long time ago, maybe 5 years ago. And it was one single earring. And it didn't have a pair, but I didn't care because it was a mustard seed. So I opened up my purse and I'm like, okay, this is very coincidental. Opened up the case, pulled out the earring, and it was the exact match for her earring for her grandmother. And I gave it to her. So she started crying. So she left with a match to her grandmother's earring. So that was pretty moving. And I'm like, okay, it was just a little too coincidental. And I'm like, all right. So then me and my girlfriend, we went out to eat dinner afterwards. And the restaurant's name, and I forgot to tell you this, Nikki, the restaurant's name was Reflections. Didn't even dawn on me. So I was at a restaurant called Reflections, and we were talking about this incident, and it was pretty powerful, pretty moving. And we sat down at a table, and I got a picture of it. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's nuns. There were 3 nuns sitting next to us at the table. I am not kidding. I have never seen nuns in ages outside, dining or anything. And I'm like, okay, that was a lot. That was a lot to take in. And I mentioned to Nikki that night I got home, I was in bed by 8:30 because I was completely drained and wiped out. And I told her, and I asked her, I said, what was that all about? So you want to go ahead and explain what we thought it was? I think we thought it was abundance, right?
Yeah, and I don't even remember what we talked about. So you can refresh what we talked about because that was just information that was coming to me. But as you're talking about it right now, there's a couple elements that I think are important to point out. Something drew you to purchase that earring to begin with. And what drew you to purchase it is because of something that you had from your aunt. And that's prompted by love. So Spirit always uses our love connections to help us help ourselves, but also to help us help other people and to help us be the sign that other people need. And so a lot of times we're prompted to do things and we end up talking ourselves out of it because we think, oh, that's ridiculous. Why am I supposed to do that? And so it's easy to get into a conversation with ourselves and ignore the inner promptings that we have. In this instance, you listened to it and just kept it with you for 5 years. So that's awesome. But what I think really transpired there is that she needed not so much the mustard seed earring she did, but really what it represented for her and really what it meant for her. So she needed that sign to come to her. And the way that that sign was going to come to her was through you. So by you listening to your inside self, or you listening to your spirit and following through with purchasing it and holding it and changing your purse that morning, everything kind of led for you to be the vessel for her to receive the gift and the sign that she needed. And that's called a shared sign. So a lot of times you'll find people in your life, like I have a friend that sometimes she'll, okay, well, she's on the Zoom. Hi, Linda. So my friend here, Linda, smile, wave, Linda, so everybody knows it's you. That's Linda. Okay. So shared signs are when somebody that you know on earth gives you messages or translates information from your family and friends in heaven. And so I'll be talking to Linda sometimes, and I'm talking to Linda, my friend. That's who I'm talking to, when all of a sudden Linda says something, and that's my mother. That is like so not her. It is my mother. And what you'll find is that people that recognize that that's happening, she'll even stop and be like, oh, that wasn't me. That was your mother. And I'm like, yeah, you think? And so shared signs are when people that you are connected to can give you messages from the people in heaven. And that's when their energies are open to receive, like, it's kind of like their soul unions with your soul. And so that's how you receive that shared connection. And you kind of want to look for that from people in your life, and even from TV shows or songs on the radio, that if you put a petition out there or you need some guidance from your loved ones in heaven, if you're open to receive the sign, it could come from some lady with a mustard seed earring in her pocket that nobody even thought about. And who would have ever thought that she's the shared sign, right? Or it could be as close to you as your friend coming and, bringing you pizza bread that tastes just like your mom's fucking pizza bread from when you were a little kid. So you could get these different signs like that are from others. And that just means that your family or friend wants you to know that they are present with you. And that's called a shared sign. Now, when you share your physical body with someone in heaven, it means it's not just your soul in your body. Your body is used to having one driver, you. But when you open yourself to the experience of other energy, you're accepting a secondary soul to occupy that physical body in order to say that thing, in order to do that thing, in order for that hug to feel that particular way. And in doing that, you have two people using your body. So if that's the case, when that separation occurs and you fully dominate your own body again, now you're going to be tired. So like I go all day and I don't experience being tired, but once my sessions are over, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to pass out. Like I have to eat something. I have to do something physical, because then I'm going to pass out. So you'll recognize that happens a lot if you are the one that is allowing entry, I guess is the best way to say it.
Right. Yeah.
Now, in there, what you'll find is when you have these shared signs, and like in Kim's experience, there was another there, obviously that's a God energy, and that's, God is involved in that, and Kim is involved in that, and that lady was involved in that. But likewise, Kim's spirit was involved in that, so add another person. And that lady's spirit was involved in that, so add another person. And so here you have, right there, we're talking like about 6 people that are involved in just that, in just that interchange. And I forgot what my purpose was for saying that. Oh, And so when we have experiences like that, we know that that's heaven working with earth, because the human person and the spirit person, everybody has to be involved. And that means that on earth, we're choosing something that is separate from earth energy. And we know that earth energy is created in humanity. So it's all about matter. And this is where we get our energies of like wrath and envy. And this is where our deadly sins, if we want to call it that, that's those earth energies that Jesus warned us about. Like, do we choose earth? Do we choose money? Do we choose, material things, or do we choose him? And so oftentimes on earth, those are the things that we choose, because we have to live every day. We need a job. We got to pay our bills. So we're very accustomed to living in this human world. When we have shared signs and when we open ourselves up to spirit, it's not the energies of earth that really connect to us. It's really more the virtues, which are the energies of heaven, which are your exact opposites of, like wrath is going to be patience, and you have your virtues that are connected to it, and you have your different pieces of God's energy. And one of those pieces of God's energy is abundance. And I really think that day that you were, that's the energy that you touched was abundance, because when we were talking about it and I asked, well, what energy is that? Like, who helped facilitate this? Who helped facilitate this? Like, what energy helped to facilitate this experience? Because I know your grandma was involved. I know, or your aunt was involved. I know her family was involved, but there's a collective something there that was going on. And I kept seeing fruits and fruits and fruits and baskets and baskets and baskets of fruits that kept getting to be more fruits and more fruits and more fruits. And I thought that you touched with abundance, that you met abundance that day. And that was the energy that coordinated it. Because if I saw your mustard seed earring turning into like an offering of different fruits on a platter, and then that each fruit becoming its own basket of fruit, and then each fruit of that basket becoming its own basket of fruit, it was like it just kept multiplying, which means that shared sign, you just taught her how to have a shared sign. There's going to be a day where she has to reach into her purse and pull out something and say, I think this is for you. And so that will move forward. And in accepting that, she's accepted a shared sign, which means now she'll be the vessel for a shared sign. And she'll start to see those shared signs, around her. And then those people will open themselves up, because there's always that hello into that other realm of heaven. And that's how you do it, when you're inner prompted by something that you really don't have any rationale for.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it was pretty powerful. How many people have a mustard seed in their purse? Honestly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Right.
So,
It's the awe moment. It's where you're
yeah.
like, are you kidding me right now? Like, are you kidding me?
Stood there.
And God always fascinates. He
Yeah.
always makes you be, like in awe, and we can all get those signs. And I know people will say, well, you have to be a medium in order to get that signs, but we really are all mediums.
Yeah.
It's how far is the door open? How much do you accept of those different things? Like this morning when I woke up, I had Trisha. Hi, Trisha. Can you wave? There's Trisha. So I wake up this morning and her husband, Alan, who's in heaven, is giving me a vision. And he's like, good morning. And he's like, she loves me. She loves me not. And he's got a flower with him and he's picking it. And he's like, she loves me. She loves me not. She loves me. So he goes all the way around the flower. And there's two left. And he's like, she loves me not. And then he waits, like I'm in suspense. And he's like, she loves me. I was right. And then that was it. And then he, disappeared. So I sent Trisha a text message. So go ahead, Trisha. I'm going to turn it over to you, because I was like, and this is the reason I'm bringing it up, is because sometimes we get these impressions and we get these visions and we want to act on them. And then we think, that's ridiculous. What am I going to do? Send them a text message and say, I think your dad is here. So you talk yourself out of it. And I did that this morning. I got it and I was like, all right, I'm just waking up. Alan, is that really you? You really want me to call and tell her like you're doing this? She loves me nothing. Like I was literally coming down the stairs and I'm thinking like, okay, I have to do it, but I didn't know what it was about or anything. So there's this inner prompting. Listen to them. But I did question it. And I do this every day, all day, like for my whole life. And I was still like, that's a weird vision. Do I do it? Okay, so go ahead, Trisha.
You're gonna hear my dog. So 3 days ago, I came across a lone daisy up on my hill. Really weird. I thought a daisy now, it's October. So then I looked at it. I didn't pick it, but I did that. He loves me not, he loves me. And then I just looked at it. I said, I know you love me. I said, but you know what? Tell Nikki and tell me in 3 days. And then I'll believe that you love me. And then I got her text today, and that's been 3 days.
So that's a shared sign, right? And that's not because I'm a medium, it's just because I'm open to that. And we all do that. I mean, how many times have you tell a friend, oh, your mom would love that. I know your mom would be so proud of you. Why are you saying that? What's prompting you to say that? That is a shared sign. Those are those words of encouragement that just come to us, that their family member pops into our head. So I encourage everybody to listen to those kinds of things, because maybe it didn't mean anything today. And that's what I try to remind myself. I say, he showed it to me for a reason. It came for a reason. So even if it doesn't mean anything to her today, it might mean something for her in a week. It might mean something for her in 3 days. And so that's what we want to make sure, that what we're trusting is ourself, and not trusting if that information is true or false or right or wrong, because we don't know their intention of putting that inside of us. We're just the one to deliver the message. That's all. That's what a shared sign is. Just be open to deliver the message and trust that if it's being shown to you, there is a reason. It's not for you to decide whether the reason is right or wrong, but it feels nice when confirmation comes back and she's like, oh my God, so 3 days ago, I saw this flower. And then you're like, okay, so I'm not crazy, right? And you'll never know you're not crazy if you don't share the thought.
Right.
Right?
I thought I was crazy. So yeah, I thought I was crazy. And then I got to the restaurant and I sat down. I'm in a reflections restaurant and I saw 3 nuns. I'm like, I'm not crazy. That was supposed to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, that's great.
Right. So that's
Thanks.
great. So any questions about shared signs? Okay. Anybody else want to point us in a different direction or in a new direction?
If nobody has one, I have one.
Sure.
So based on the focus this last month, right? The different stages of dying and all that kind of stuff. It got me thinking, one of the things at the end of my dad's life, right? He had slept for weeks. And then all of a sudden, the day before he actually started to decline and actually passed, you thought that he was like, they say it's adrenaline, right? He was awake, he was talking, he was alert, he was sitting in a chair. It was like, it blew my mind. Is there more than just adrenaline? Was there something going on with his spirit at that point that, helps in that?
Yeah, because it's kind of like in birth and death, I find is a very similar experience. When a woman gets pregnant, the soul doesn't fully reside. The soul doesn't come for like about 48 or 49 days. And then the soul begins to check on the body to make sure that the body is developing okay. And so that baby angel soul doesn't spend its whole 9 months in there. It kind of comes and goes and checks in and checks out. And that's very similar to what happens during the process of death, is that as a person's body starts to not have the vitality or the physical strength to withhold the energy of the spirit, because that's what happens, right? The physical body contains the soul. So the soul is sometimes starts to become bigger than the body can actually hold on to. So as that process starts to happen, then the soul kind of comes and goes from the body. If somebody's experiencing a very difficult illness or physical experience, they will separate from the body to kind of like catch a break from all of that. And their friends and family from heaven can kind of occupy their body and can kind of help them help the body, kind of watch the body while their spirit is out of the body. So there is this coming and going during those times where you feel like they're in a more of an unconscious state or they're in and out. It's because truly they are in and out of their experience. So there's a period of time where when the body gets very close to being ready, and usually that's within like 3 or 4 days, you'll have a day where that person, their soul fully rejoins their body, like 100%, like not hovering around. Nobody else is in the body. Nobody else is watching the body. Like they fully rejoin their body. And when they do that, that's when they're up and they're looking at you, or they're able to communicate with you, or they're squeezing your hands, and you recognize that, oh my gosh, they're having a better day. And you really think that that means that they're probably going to get better, or they're on the mend, or a miracle happened. But truly, it's just their way of coming into the body to say goodbye to the body and to release the body. So what they will do during that day and the following day is they will be, that's kind of like where they begin to collect their human experiences that will function as their language in heaven for you later. Right? So they'll experience the things they need to, and they'll say their goodbyes, or they come back so you have time to say your goodbyes to them. But really, it's just so they can release the body, let go. Like, you know, I moved out of my apartment, but I may have left a razor there and my one purse. So let me go back and just make sure that I didn't leave anything that I want to take with me. And so I find that that day is really connected to a similar type of experience. Like, you know, they've already kind of moved out, but they're just, you know, there's other things that they left that they want to make sure that they collect, and they do that on that day.
Thank you.
And what your dad is saying, hi, Leonard, what your dad is saying really is that it's a time that you get to hold on to things eternally in heaven. So it's where your 5 senses are reactivated, right? So he's telling me that it's also connected to you having your 5 senses back, because it's like you're including them in your spiritual senses, like you're seeing how they work. Now that you've been out and you're moving back in, you're seeing how it really works.
Oh, wow,
so that's what your dad said. But I'll have to think about that more. But anyway, that's what he showed me.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Dad.
Yeah. Next person.
Well, I have a question if nobody else does.
Oh yeah, please.
A couple, I think it was maybe 2 sessions ago or 2 months ago. You were talking about the different guardian angels that we have, and you were explaining there's, you know, your principal spirit guide, and then there's the guardian angel of divine timing, and the one for intuition, and those were people that were human, you know, before, not, and then there's the archangels, and of course God is up there too. So and that was a really informative discussion about it. Somebody asked, well, you know, if my grandma was my principal spirit guide, well, who was my principal spirit guide before she passed away? And you said, well, it was still her. It's the same spirit, you know. And I was thinking about that because my late husband, Tom, is my guardian angel of divine timing. You've told me that in the past. And he always gives me really good parking spots. So anyway, when I ask. And so then it occurred to me, well, if these are people that we know, well, I met him as an adult, and so does that mean that because he's my guardian angel of divine timing, does that mean that I knew him before? I mean, can your angel be someone that you've never known?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I guess I'm asking him, have I known him from a previous life? Is that how
Absolutely.
he became to be that? So
yes. He didn't get that job because he met you here on earth and was your husband. He had that job before he met you here on earth and before he was your husband, and that's connected to a previous life that you had with him. So that's prearranged from a different life. Your souls are eternally connected, but you may not find each other or even meet each other on this earth. But when you do, you'll gravitate toward each other because that's already an eternal connection. So your human selves will gravitate toward each other for that reason.
I see. Okay. So it's not like you can become somebody's guardian angel without knowing them, at least
right
from a previous life or something like that. I mean,
right.
Yeah, without knowing them until that lifetime. It's not like it's a random thing.
I think we're saying the same thing. Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because that kind of struck me. I was like, oh, well, is that what that means? You know?
Yeah. When I realized that, I was actually in Walmart getting a birthday card, and I was wondering who is my principal spirit guide and guardian angel. And then I look over, and it was like 20 minutes or something. I was wondering it on my way to Walmart, but then when I was standing in the card aisle, my principal spirit guide and guardian angel was right to my right. And I was like, oh, and it's my grandma. And I was like, okay, you are my principal spirit guide and guardian angel. You're standing in the same place. And I did ask her, well, who was my spirit guide before you? And she said, it's always been me.
Mm-hmm.
Every lifetime, it's always been me. And so we have that soul family that we connect to. And in some lifetimes we're with them, and in some lifetimes we're not with them. But despite that, they are still our spirit guide.
But she said she was yours for every lifetime.
For every lifetime, that she's always been with me as my principal. Not in every lifetime did we know each other, and not in every lifetime, were we together, but she's always been that to me.
I see. Well, that's very interesting.
Yeah, it confused me too, but it made sense when she was like, well, we're eternal. I was like, oh yeah, right. It was like click. It sounded real obvious when she explained it, but it wasn't obvious to me at that time. So
clearly it wasn't.
And you are a spirit guide to others as well. And you're doing that for them now. And you do that for them in every lifetime. So there are people that you are a spirit guide to right now.
Mm.
And your spirit will go off and guide them in the manner that they need to. And then you can identify those moments where you are the guide when you have a moment of absence or a moment of absence from yourself.
Mm.
You'll be in the living room and you want to go get that piece of chocolate in the kitchen, and you get up and you walk into the kitchen. But when you get to the kitchen, you don't really remember why you're in the kitchen. There's that moment of absence that happens, that you're distracted for those 3 seconds and something left your mind, like you dodged out and you don't know why you're in the kitchen. But if you think of eternity as no time,
Mm-hmm.
those 3 seconds are only measured by your humanity. But time there is no time. So you have always plenty of time to guide somebody that you're charged to guide in this lifetime. And you can still experience these moments of absence, and it's actually plenty of time to help them, but you may only experience as a moment of absence. And so then it takes you a minute, and you can feel yourself actually coming back, because when you get to the kitchen, You're done guiding them. And now your spirit is descending back into a fullness with your physical body. So it takes you a minute to adjust. But then you even recognize when you arrive and you're like, oh yeah, that's right. I wanted that piece of chocolate. And if you think about it, you wait for your spirit to fully fill you, because you stand in the kitchen and go, why am I here? And you don't move. You freeze, you pause, you don't bend over, you don't look around, you stop moving, and you're like,
I
and
always
this
thought
gives,
that was old age.
yeah, but it happened even when you were younger. There's really not a time that didn't happen. You know, we're in 7th grade running out of the house, and we know that we got to grab our jacket, but we get distracted with something, or something else happens and we don't grab our jacket. So we have always had moments in our life where we separate from our spirit self being more dominant than our human self. The reason we don't identify with it so much when we're younger and when we're children is because we're closer to heaven. We're not so conditioned and marred by society and social media and all of the above. Now you're going to hear my dogs. So, sorry about that, you guys. Hey, V. So, what was I saying?
That you're closer
Right.
to
So
them when you're
we
younger.
don't, yeah, we're like closer to our own spirit when we're children. Right. So we don't really recognize those as moments of absence because we live more dominantly in spirit when we're children, as opposed to when we're adults. When we're adults, we're in a constant argument with ourselves. When we're children, we just do whatever we feel like, whatever makes us happy, whatever our buddy wants, like that's what we live based on how we feel, not what we think. And so as we get older, we notice those moments of absence start to increase. And then by the time we're old, I guess you could say, if we can recognize that, then we know that, our journey is getting closer to heaven, right? We're more pointed toward heaven at my age, 53. I am more 52 or 53 am I?
Yeah.
52. So I'm more pointed toward heaven at 52 than I was at 25, right? So now I'm opening up. My spirit is already coming and going with more frequency than when I had to be dominantly human because I was a single mom, or because I had 2 jobs, or because I had all these projects at work and I had to be dominantly human. But as we get older and we start to have our spirits pointed more in the direction of heaven, that's when we start to open ourselves up more. And by that time in our life, people that we care about have passed away. People that we love, they're already on the other side. So we're not really avoiding heaven anymore. When we're younger, we don't pay heaven much mind. But when somebody that we care about goes to heaven, oh, now we're all anxious to know about heaven. We want to meet heaven. We want to talk to heaven. We want heaven to come talk to us. So we are just our mortality itself brings us through a cycle of, well, here we are, we're new. You need heaven to survive the first 7 years of your life. And then for the next, so many years, you're going to be really inundated with how to live as a human being. But don't forget where you're going to go back to where you came from. So you have to gather that perspective then later on in your life, where your soul is becoming the more dominant self. If you've ever had we had an Uncle Pete, and Uncle Pete was cranky until he was about 62. And everybody was like, oh, Uncle Pete's really mellowed out. He really mellowed out. No, he didn't. He's just pointing closer. So his human self is not as dominant anymore. So he doesn't have that fight because it's not dominant. He's not trying to survive on earth. He's already pointing in that direction. So he's more open to the peacefulness, and so he doesn't appear as cranky. And that's because the soul is actually taking more of a dominant role, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Mhm. Anybody else? What time are we at anyway? We still have, so we have
I
about
have a
15 more
question.
minutes. Sure. Hi, Amanda. That's my
Hi, sorry.
astrology daughter-in-law. If anybody wants to have their astrology things read, but okay, go ahead, honey.
I love talking about the moon and everything related to the stars, but I have a question about animals. So I've heard that there is like a soul dog or a soul cat, you know, you can have like a soul animal. Is it possible that people, loved ones that have passed on, could like enter an animal of yours at certain moments? Because there's times where I'll look at my cat Naya and I'm just like, is this my grandma? She looks just like my grandma right now. And then there's other times where I'm like, I don't know, I feel like she sent her to me, or like, I guess I don't know what I'm asking, like if
I know what you're
there's
asking, and I totally understand what you're talking about. Animals are not reincarnations of your family and friends in heaven. They are the most pure energy that there is. And one of the things that'll happen is, like, I recognize this a lot with my dog Penny. Penny carries a lot of my mom's energy with her. But when we were talking about shared signs, animals are brilliant for shared signs, because something that they are so completely unconditional love, that anything that is of unconditional love, hi Matt, can kind of flow through them. So I've noticed, and especially during the times where we were experiencing everything with Marissa's journey, I would sit in the kitchen and it would be late at night, and Penny would come into the kitchen and she would look at me, and oh my God, that was my mother's face. Like, I know she's a dog, but it was my mom. It was her energy. It was her energy that came close to me, but it was my dog. My dog was the one that was rubbing on my leg. My dog was the one I was hugging and crying. But there were moments where I knew that my mom was the dog, but my mom wasn't the dog. The dog opens her energy to receive my mom's energy, independent to me, so I can feel my mom's nurturing. So the dog or the animal will take part in opening themselves up to that shared connection. And for those moments, that is a shared space between life, creation. It's not even animal or human, it's life. And so your grandmother or your mom or whoever it is in heaven will become life in order to have life express to you their sentiment. And animals are really, really brilliant at doing that for us. So the question, I hope I explained that the right way. So no, they're not a reincarnation of them, but they are very open to unconditional love. So if you need your grandma or your mama, yeah, they will allow their energy to express that love through that physical conduit.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like I knew that it wasn't her, but then there were so many moments, like you said, you'd look at their face and you're just like, are you talking to me? Like you're talking to
Right.
me like a human right now, but
Right.
you're not.
Right.
So yeah,
Right.
it's crazy.
Sure. What's the question? Who has a question? Christine has a question.
I just unmuted.
What's your question?
I'm sorry, I've been so multitasking. Grace has to bring birthday treats to school tomorrow, so we wrapped applesauce mummies.
Sweet.
Listen to
That's
everything.
fine. I love it.
I was going through her backpack and I found a little sign, a little cardinal. It's just something she drew. See the bird, and every time I see cardinals, I always think
I think of your
was
dad.
my brother. And I think of my dad now too.
Right. Right.
But so speaking of my dad, it's a very specific question, but he had this amazing comic book collection. And then he got sick and he declined too quickly to take care of this collection, to sell this collection. And it's caused my mom a lot of stress. She wants to do the right thing with these comics. And we had a lead for somebody in Madison and he's not interested. So for, a week and a half every day, I'm like, Dad, please guide us on what we're supposed to do with these comics. So, and then I thought, I'll just ask. I'm sorry, it's so specific to me and not to the large group. But if
That's
he's
okay.
able to convey anything,
He is, because you said cardinal, and I know from knowing you that that's connected to your brother, but your dad is the one that stepped in. That's why I said your dad. But you know what he shows me? He shows me like if he sent a message in a bottle. That's the vision I have. If like he's standing on one side of the ocean and I'm on the other side of the ocean and he throws a message in a bottle and then I gotta wait for the message to come down, stop looking. It'll find you.
Okay.
If you're
thinking 5 minutes ago, her dad never sends her cardinals anymore, and then Christine pulled out the picture of the cardinal.
okay, so can you get on and say that and explain that if Angel's not able to explain it?
You have to go on.
Oh, I'm gonna mute so Marissa can tell that story.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Okay, so can everyone hear me? Yes. Okay. All right. So Angel Smith, who's on, just sent a message in the chat saying it's funny. She was just thinking 5 minutes ago that her dad never sends her cardinals anymore. And then Christine pulled out the picture of the cardinals. So it kind of ties into
To shared messages,
yeah.
right? In that moment, Christine, you got a message, but your message was part of a shared message for Angel. So like it kind of goes back to the mustard seed moment.
I didn't even
Okay.
think of it that way, but that's awesome.
Yeah, and that is exactly it. And the information I had wasn't about your brother, it was about dad. And that really covers for both of you. So that is amazing. And then now I'm in awe. So now I don't know what we were talking about. What were we? Oh, so he shows me the message in the bottle and he's saying like it'll come to you. It's not here yet. So when it comes, it'll be ideal, nothing that you can try to chase. But the only thing I tell people if I get a vision similar to that or like that leads me to that perspective is if you feel prompted to look up something or to connect with something or to put an ad out or to put a notification out, do it. If you don't. Trust that he'll do it. He already put the message in the bottle. So he has an intention of it and you'll figure it out when it arrives.
Thank you.
Mhm. Are you all better? Are you feeling better?
I do feel better. Thank you. Yeah,
Okay.
for the group at large, I've had COVID 3 times, and just last year when I had it out, it was really severe, and then I was vaccinated, and I thought, I don't think I'm gonna get it again, and I did. So my whole family just had it last month, and it was worse emotionally than it was physically. But thank you for being there, Nikki, to field my texts and be a support during that time.
No worries. I'm glad you guys are feeling better. So I'm
Thank
glad
you.
to hear that. That's wonderful.
Thank
Okay,
you.
guys, we have a few more minutes. Anybody else have any last minute ideas or anything that you would like to ask or touch on before we say goodnight? No.
I got something. If anybody else is trying to go, I
Hi.
can't.
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So it's kind of weird. It's been happening. Usually, like I'll see my loved ones, and sometimes I kind of know like what's going on. I could just feel it. But now I'm seeing like I was showering and I saw my sister's silhouette, and I knew something was wrong with her, but I didn't know like what. And it was like I had a block or something. It happened with my friend, and I called him and I was like, whatever you're doing something wrong. And he was like, oh my gosh, you just freaked me out. Like I'm making a bad decision and I shouldn't be doing it. And but I don't know what it is. Sometimes I do, but I've not known exactly what this, like why it's happening.
Okay, that will get easier. And I do offer mentorship sessions if you are interested in that. But I can kind of tie it up in a nutshell and tell you what's happening. Sometimes there are people in your life that you love them, they love you. So your soul is very open to their soul. And sometimes they make stupid decisions. And so, as we all know, when we make stupid decisions, what happens right before we make a stupid decision? Our inside self is like, don't make that decision. Don't get in the car. Don't drink that drink. Don't do this thing. Don't invest that money. Right before we make a bad decision, something inside of us says, don't do it. And if we're very rebellious against our own soul, we're going to tell our own soul to shut up and sit down. And so our soul, because it ain't your time to go yet, our soul is like, holy crap, what do I do now? Who loves her? Who is open to her? So their soul will shoot over to your soul. And then you'll like get a vision of them, or you'll see them and you'll be like, have a sense of urgency. And maybe right now you don't know what the communication is. You don't know what they're about to do. As you grow in the connection, you'll know. You'll be able to call them and be like, don't take that drink, or don't invest that money, or don't, you see, so you'll get that perspective after a while. But what's happening is the souls, they're not listening to themselves. And they are in a danger point. They're in a moment that can shift their future. So their soul reaches out to your soul, and then your soul tries to get you to call them so that they can be called to attention. Like, why did you just blow yourself off? You're about to change your entire future here.
Well, sometimes I know that. I mean, like with my sister, of course, I just tell her things all the time, and they're always, but that's my sister. Okay. I hope it gets easier. Really frustrating.
It is because you're trying to figure out why you feel that way, or what you're supposed to derive from that. But that goes into, I could talk to you 100 hours. I don't know how your spirit does it for you, but we can figure it out if we connect on that topic.
Perfect.
So,
thank you.
That was a great question. So everybody, thank you so much for joining our Pure Soul today. I hope everybody got a chance to watch the Death and Dying information video from last month, and also the tarot card pull, which I don't remember even what it was this month at the moment. I don't. But if not, take a look at it. It's pretty good information. And this was great. Thank you, everybody, for your participation. I love you guys, and see you next month. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Nikki.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.